And welcome to Local Edition on Time Warner Cable. I'm Steve Swatt with the Sacramento Report. In the next few minutes, we're going to talk about turning vacant lots into urban gardens. My guest this segment is Phil Ting, a member of the State Assembly representing San Francisco and part of San Mateo. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
So I know you have this legislation that would sort of facilitate this. I guess the situation right now is where you have, in an urban setting, you have a vacant lot, for example, and the landowner just sort of sits on it until he or she can find a buyer.
It's been very common in San Francisco. I mean, you might recall after the Loma Prieta earthquake, we had lots of our freeways torn down. And some of our most popular urban garden areas were the beginnings of the off-ramps of these old freeways that got torn down. And they were turned into gardens temporarily until developers would come along and build apartment buildings. So we really want to try to create a property assessment incentive that would potentially lower property taxes for those landowners to keep them as agricultural land.
And this would be statewide?
This would be statewide. Again, for very small acres, under 3, very small cost to the counties and the cities and the state. But again, it really helps accommodate, especially certain areas that have food deserts where they really don't have fresh vegetables. They could really potentially grow some of these vegetables that would serve their community.
And so I understand as part of this legislation there would be a contract, a voluntary contract between the landowners and I guess a community
That's right.
group?
And the company or the landowner, and no, it would be with the city as well, or the county. So this is modeled after the Mills Act and the Williamson Act, where we've done this for historic renovation as well as to preserve agricultural land in rural areas. So what we've done is really model after that, so that there would have to be an area that would have to be specified by a local jurisdiction. There'd have to be contracts signed between the property owner and the local jurisdiction to make sure.
5-year contract, I understand.
A 5-year contract, exactly. And to make sure that that is maintained, that the property is maintained, there would have to be regular checkups too, because you could say, hey, it's going to be ag land today, and then tomorrow all of a sudden there's a high-rise apartment building. So the contract could be revoked anytime, which is how it's modeled.
Who could revoke it?
Well, the city could revoke it if you have not upheld the contract, meaning if you decided it wasn't going to be agricultural land afterwards and you put some sort of hotel or office building, they would say, okay, well, we're going to revoke it now.
What if a landowner signs this contract voluntarily?
Yes.
It's a garden for 2 years and all of a sudden somebody comes by and says, I want to buy it, I'm going to put up a big high-rise.
Absolutely.
Stuck?
No, absolutely not. So then the contract's with the previous landowner, not the new landowner. So then there would be obviously a change of ownership, and that contract would be voided.
There would be a property tax benefit.
Absolutely, right. So the idea is, right now, I'm the former assessor in San Francisco, and what would happen is if we had a vacant land, I would have to assess it as if someone was going to build a high-rise office building or a high-rise apartment building or a house. Well, that land is very, very valuable. So if someone wanted to make it an urban garden, it makes it less valuable, but the only way to restrict the assessment would be if we entered into a contract with the local government.
Are you getting pushback from assessors? Because after all, you are shrinking the treasury a little bit by giving this tax break.
Assessors don't care so much about that. So cities and counties care about that. And I think they see the ultimate benefit, because actually while this one plot may be kept at a lower assessment, what we've seen as studies in New York, that urban gardens and urban farming has really created a renaissance in the city and raised property values all around. Because what you're doing is you're taking a vacant lot, which usually is an eyesore. That's dragging down property values. This will be increasing property values. Assessors are worried about implementation, so we've been trying to work with them on figuring out how best to implement this program. That's their main concern.
All right. Well, we're out of time in this segment, but it's a fascinating subject, and best of luck with this legislation. Going through. You're almost done with it.
Yes.
Right?
Thanks so much for having me on.
And thanks for being here. All right. And thanks also to our viewers for watching Local Edition on Time Warner Cable. A reminder, you can see this and other interviews on YouTube, also on My Government On Demand. I'm Steve Swatt. Have a great day.